Welcome officially to the September North Dakota Development Alliance meeting. And since we have some new faces today, I'm just going to start with introductions. So if you would just be willing to tell us your name, where you're located, and then your connection to local foods or the organization that you're working with. And then we'll go ahead and go around the room. I will start. My name is Felicity Merritt. I am located in Fargo, North Dakota. I am the program manager for farms, and I do that job remotely, and formerly the coordinator for NDL-FDA, although I'm still around, so I'm not sure what my, no title, just a local food advocate. And then let's go ahead and have Stephanie go.
Sure. I'm Stephanie Bloomhagen. I'm the Executive Director of Farms and the Board Chair for North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance. And I am located up in Bottineau near the Canadian border. And often I facilitate these meetings, but today it's going to be all Felicity and Karen. So,
Karen, do you want to go next?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for making time to be part of this meeting today. I'm Karen Ahrens in Bismarck. I'm the coordinator for the Creating a Hunger-Free North Dakota Coalition. I'm a board member of the North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance and have worked in local foods with the State Agriculture Department for a few years as a consultant as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Holiday.
Hi. Good afternoon. Good to see everybody's faces. I'm kind of stuck in my home office with my cat. It's nice to look out and see some real human beings out there. I'm Holiday. I work with Jill Hackinson there in USDA Rural Development, and my office is in Bismarck.
Okay, thank you. Paul.
Paul Overby. I farm near Wolford, North Dakota in rural southeast Rolette County. And our organization, the Northern Plains Resource Conservation and Development Council, which Jill used to head up for us at one point in time, has been working with local foods now for several years. And we have 2 USDA rural development grants that are currently underway. Fortunately, with the approval of Scott, a couple of 90-day extensions to help us finish them up. One of them is a mobile app that we're working on, and the other is market development. And we did an education program this winter with that farms put on using the Farm Beginnings program. And then the next phase of the program is to actually get out into the communities and talk about the feasibility study that we did, and to also encourage them to support local farms. And I've got to develop some materials to take with them, including Stephanie, for example, the Farm Dreams and the upcoming Farm Beginnings classes, so that we have that to take out with them to show them resources, as well as the USDA programs and FSA programs and all of them are kind of good stuff that can help people get things going in their communities, or strengthen what they already have. Some communities are doing well, so it'll just be to boost them along.
Okay, thank you. Melissa?
Hi, I'm Melissa Matson, representing the North Dakota Educators Service Cooperative, NDESC. I'll let Jane talk a little bit about that structure, but based in Fergus Falls, but work with the North Dakota schools. The reason I'm on today is to talk about the disruption in K-12 distribution food, from the food side and from the labor side. We actually have pretty extensive community food experience, Jane and I do. On the Minnesota side, we work closely with MDE and have a lot, Department of Ed, Food and Nutrition, and have a lot with local foods in schools. And actually the service co-op we're based in ran a food hub to help support the commercial side of local foods for a couple of years. So we have extensive experience in an experiment.
Okay, thank you. There's always so many acronyms when everyone's introducing themselves. Jane, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Easties, and Melissa and I both work at a service agency, a public nonprofit created by the legislature in Minnesota, but we have a joint powers and we actually provide the staffing for the North Dakota Educator Service Cooperative, NDESC, and do all, as Melissa said, we do all of the bidding on their behalf, which includes running the school food bid for schools all across the state.
Okay, thank you. Jill.
Hawkinson Community Development Specialist with Rural Development, working with Holiday. I also serve as the USDA Beginning Farmer Rancher Coordinator for the state of North Dakota, working with 4 agencies to do outreach to beginning farmers and ranchers in underserved communities.
Okay, thank you. Craig.
Hi, Craig Burns. I'm a social work professor at UND over in Grand Forks and am trying to think of my title, vice chair of the board, I think, and connected to local foods through some projects here in Grand Forks, and then with the nonprofit Wanawota Food Pantry in Devils Lake. And if there's loud noises, I apologize. They're doing some construction in the office above me.
Okay, thank you. Jan?
Hey everybody, Jan Stankiewicz, Community Health and Nutrition Specialist and Tribal Liaison with NDSU Extension. My office is in Bismarck, and my relation to local foods, farm to school. I currently serve on the board of directors for Bismarcket, which is one of the farmers markets here in town. And our health coalition called Go Bismarck Mandan does a lot of work around local foods and food systems. And then my work as a specialist with Extension, farmers markets, farm to school, local foods, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Laurie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Laurie Sapleu. I'm the Rural Development Director for North Dakota's Rural Electric and Telecommunications Cooperatives. And we have been working in rural food access for the last 7 years. It keeps adding up. We haven't solved anything, but we keep working in it. And primarily interested in trying to keep the rural grocery stores open, but any connections to local foods are awesome as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Podal. I serve as the state conservationist for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, and I get to work with Holiday and Jill and other great people around the Department of Agriculture responsibilities, including local foods and helping our producers. And then a different note, I also support my son, who is a local produce farmer and farmers market member. So good to be here.
Thank you. Christine?
Okay, can everybody see me?
Yep.
I am the North Dakota Local Foods Marketing Specialist, and me and my team work with outside agencies to kind of facilitate the farm to school program for North Dakota.
Thank you. And Quinn?
Hey, let's try that again. Hey guys, my name is Quinn Renfin. I'm currently just south of Monmouth, North Dakota. Building the aquaponics greenhouse here. Going to be going after the farm to school market in this area, but right now I'm representing the Entrepreneurial Center for Horticulture out of Dakota College in Botno.
Hey, thank you, Quinn. Did I forget anyone? Did everyone get a chance to introduce themselves? Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you. And we are actually right on schedule, so that worked out perfectly. It's great to meet those of you that I have not met before, and thanks for joining us. So I'm quickly going to pull up our agenda and go through that here. So can everyone see my screen? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to go over is our new website. This will be kind of a quick overview. I hope that there are some questions and comments on it. We just launched this, and this is where our member updates will live now. So the process that we were doing before was a little bit clunky, and hopefully this will help with that. And then we're going to touch on September. It is Hunger Action Month. And Karen will speak a little bit about that, which also leads nicely into the main topic for our meeting today, which is, like some of you have mentioned, trying to work toward a coordinated farm to school effort in this state, and then some of the issues that we are seeing right now. And then the very last thing will be going over any quick member updates that anyone has to share. So I'm going to start with our website. Like I said, this is where we're moving over all of our resources, and all of our member updates will be here as well. So this is the main screen, kind of like the landing page that just talks about who we are, what we do, why we work in local foods. And then at the bottom, we have our Facebook feed and some quotes from some of our members. So what most of you guys would probably be using this website for is the member updates, and that is in this tab over here. And so we have here, information sharing is a key role of the North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance, and this page is a way for us to do that. So on the left side here is where all of the updates will show up. You can add a photo if you want. It's similar to like a Facebook or a social media feed where you can click on them to get the full article or update. We can see this one was from Farms about a learning session we're doing about the upcoming Pandemic Response and Safety Grant Program. So you can see the links here, or you could comment on that. Comments will show up here, and then our members will be listed below here. So if you are looking to make an update yourself, you will have to be logged in and you'll have to have a profile. So you can do that by clicking this join button here. And you can choose if you're joining as an official representative of your organization, or if you're joining as an individual. I'm not gonna go completely through the login process. This part is pretty self-explanatory. If you have questions on this, let me know. But you would put in your name and your personal contact information. The next page would be filling in some information for your organization, the address, which is optional, I believe, and then your role in that organization. And this is set up, for example, Stephanie and I both work for Farms. So if I log in here, I can go under my organizations, and so I could be in multiple people can be part of one organization, and one person can be part of multiple organizations. So if I wanted to make an update on behalf of the Local Food Development Alliance, maybe I went over that. Here. You go to the member update page, or no, sorry, you go to create. You go to create, and then I say I'm posting at North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance. The title would be monthly meeting, and then I could choose to upload an image if I want. Here, I could choose the default photo for my organization, which is this. And then this part is very similar to, like I said, like a Facebook or anything like that. And so you could either copy and paste something or type an update into here. And then you can click preview to see how that will will look when it's finished and then submit. And it prompts me if just to make sure I'm posting on behalf of the Local Food Development Alliance. And I could go back and change that to farms if I wanted to. But I say this is okay, and now it shows up under updates. So that's the quick version. I'm gonna pause here and ask if anyone has questions. And like I said, if there are other more specific questions, feel free to email me or stay on afterwards and I can chat with you. Okay. All right. Well, for the sake of time, I think I'm going to move on. All right, and pass it over to Karen to touch on our next item on the agenda.
Yes, and if no one has objection, I think I'd like to move the update on Hunger Action Month down to the end where we're doing partner updates so that we can jump right into this discussion around the current pressing situation at hand, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Right, and just I think most everyone was on prior to when we officially started the call and heard some of the details on the issues pressing in North Dakota schools. And it's not just North Dakota schools or Minnesota schools, but throughout the nation. I worked at the Department of Public Instruction for about 5 years, administering school nutrition programs as well in the mid-90s. I remain committed and a champion of school meals. And so through my membership in the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, I belong to a school nutrition group and have had the opportunity to hear from some school food service directors from other parts of the country, including Texas, Georgia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and all are reporting these similar struggles and issues with, like many other aspects of our economy, the struggle for employees, bus drivers, cooks, assistants, class, cafeteria supervision. So there's that. And then the disruptions in our food supply chain, which you remember started under COVID, when some of us went to the grocery store for the first time in our lives, so we couldn't find some particular food we were looking for. Others of us were even experiencing harder issues, and due to the changes in jobs and working, didn't have enough resources to purchase what we wanted to buy, which wasn't on the shelves. So with those bumps and bottlenecks and changes, it's impacting our schools. And I would love to hear more from Melissa and Jane if they want to jump in and add on to the struggles, and Laurie, that are being brought forward to specifically to North Dakota schools.
Sure, I'll start. So I don't have to set the national scene. Thank you, Karen. Just to add to that, we know, so we're part of a 29 state purchasing group, and I think we've heard from all states that they're experiencing disruptions in the K-12 distribution system. We know US Foods left the K-12 market in Kansas, Florida, and Pennsylvania. And I say it's a crash course in economics and the forces of the market. Some of these we knew were coming. We knew there was going to be a shortage of drivers who maintained a CDL, which affects, as we know, the distribution system and the bus drivers. I think about 10 years ago, our distributor was projecting that in 10 years, there would be 40,000 open CDL positions across the United States. So there's the labor shortage that is significantly affecting them on the driver's side, but even more so on the warehouse side. So to load a truck You obviously need workers who work overnight to pick the product and then load the various trucks that are going out for the routes the next day. Cashway is our current distributor. They used to be known as Food Services of America, and then there was a pretty significant buyout or selling of Food Services of America by US Foods. Cashway picked up the Fargo House, and in their warehouse, like Sunday night, they ran 5 people short. Anywhere from 5 to 10 people short every night, overnight, means you're just not getting product out. So on top of a CDL driver shortage, if you want to drive, there's a $10,000 sign-on bonus with them right now. And then workers. So there's the one, which is, it seems to be driving
This attribute that can be measured from
is the worker shortage in the warehouse. That's really driving some decisions by Cashway. On the other side of the K-12 market is the disruption in that's occurring from the manufacturers of the food, from Cargill to Schwann's to General Mills to everybody. We're seeing the shutdown of lines. We're seeing some companies not starting the production of K-12 food until a little later, which puts pressure on other line products. We're seeing significant increases in cost. For example, Schwann's used to make multiple lines of pizzas. They now do cheese pizzas. So it's a significant disruption. Again, a little, product shortage, worker shortage. It's just all coming to a head, a perfect storm, if you will. And just for those of you who don't know, the products that have to be served as someone who participates in the National School Lunch Program are different than what you are buying off your shelves. The example I like to use is Pop-Tarts. The Pop-Tarts you may buy at the grocery store are not the Pop-Tarts that the kids eat in the school. Pizzas have to have a whole wheat crust. There's a whole set of nutrition standards that are established around. There's a sodium level, whole wheat, etc. Some of those have been eased by USDA, but not everything has. So it's a different market there. So that's where we came to, and we received a letter from Cashway, which they exercised their 60-day out of our agreement simply because they don't have the labor to get the trucks on the road to our schools. We immediately called the Department of Instruction and said, brought them up to speed. They connected us with Laurie to maybe put in some supplemental things for the rural districts. And we went into what's called emergency procurement. National School Lunch Program is funded with federal dollars, which means there are requirements around how a district can purchase food. They simply can't choose a distributor that they like. They have to go through a solicitation process. We do that on their behalf under what the Century Code allows us to do. So we are an emergency procurement, which means it's a scaled down version of the process that still protects them on how they need to procure with federal dollars. We used our registered dietitian to narrow the market basket. So the list of foods, there's 139, which excludes produce. That's too hard to control produce prices. That changes weekly typically. But what it does is it's enough choices for a district to put together a good, healthy meal in front of the students that meet the nutritional standards. We're allowing choice. So a distributor can come in and say, I can serve this school, but not this school. I can serve this school, but they're going to have to take the delivery at the high school and they're going to have to come in and pick it up. That's on the street. right now. It's due the 28th. And then by October 5th, we'll have an agreement in place and start onboarding the schools. So the schools are covered until November 2nd is where they're at. We're trying to put a lot of I think we're on to plan F, just in case we don't get coverage. How do we supplement? So Laurie's been great in connecting us to the rural grocers, the postal service. We don't know what we might have to put in place, but we're trying to put at least the start of the infrastructure in case we need to cross-dock and tap into others. We've also had a lot of conversations with the smaller distributors who help stock smaller grocery stores. I'm going to call them, like in Minnesota, they would cover the resort towns, convenience stores, to see, because they're a little more nimble. And then do there need to be regional drops? But we just don't know if we're at that yet. It may come that between the 5 distributors in the K-12 market, can they provide some kind of coverage? We'll know much more next week when we get responses in and start to go through them. So that is a fast overview of the last couple of weeks. Jane, is there anything that I missed that feels relevant?
No, Melissa, I think you did your usual very good job of covering the bases there. I just, just kind of reiterate what Melissa said, which is we know, in times of crisis like this, there can also be times of opportunity, such as being able to make these connections. And we have local foods close to our hearts. So
yeah.
No, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. We've been lucky. North Dakota DPI is their usual great selves. They connected us with Laurie, the distributors, everyone. I mean, to a fault, everyone's just said, well, we just need to make sure kids are getting good, healthy breakfasts and lunches, and that's everyone's goal. There's just economic factors around the distribution system right now that are forcing decisions, because pretty much every distributor we spoke with talked about how they're stable now, but one driver getting sick will spin them into a little bit of trouble too. So that's the quick overview. Questions or Jane and I are here.
We've also had a couple of people join us since we did our original introductions. I know I see Jody and Glenn. So if you could briefly just say hello, tell us where you work and where you're calling in from quick, while people are thinking of some questions or comments to that great overview of the state of school food service.
Sure, thanks, Karen. Jody Bruins, Leadership and Civic Engagement Specialist with NDSU Extension, and I am joining you from Oaks today. Thank you.
Glenn Muskie, I don't work. Retired. I was out picking beans, thus I joined late. What can I say? The bigger crop than I expected from Bismarck.
I think Travis Hoffman also joined too.
Travis.
Felicity.
Oh gosh, yeah, I had to flip to my other screen, which is a great thing, meaning we have lots of people. Travis, are you as TWH on the code that shows up by a dot?
I suspect that's him. It's Travis Hoffman, Chief Specialist from NDSU.
Okay.
Asked him to join. Thank you.
Isaac?
I'm Isaac Bronco. I'm Travis's grad student.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining. Okay, I think I'm seeing everyone now. I just wanted to call briefly on Laurie quickly, because speaking of distribution and trucks and a lot of drops across a large area in schools for schools reminds us of the situation that the North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives has been leading and discussing with the Rural Grocer Initiative. Laurie, do you have just a couple thoughts or comments on how there's similarities between what we're seeing here in schools and what we've seen in distribution to rural grocers?
Sure. So I first want to just give a little appreciation to Jane's comment that, in every challenge, there is an opportunity. And this, in my eyes, is an opportunity as miserable as the challenge has to feel at this point. We were experiencing this already in the grocery sector before COVID hit. So we were feeling that this is something that was going to happen in rural places. We didn't know when we were going to start feeling this happening like it is now. I think the pandemic made it happen a little faster. But prior to the pandemic, we had some conversations with the post office about the ability of involving them in being the transportation system that gets the food to our more remote towns, our rural communities. And they've been interested. And so when this problem popped up, I reached out to them again, and they had actually rolled out a test program in Texas called Click and Ship. And they are experimenting with moving products like food in Texas. So they're already tested some, they're kind of ready. I was just really asking them if they wanted to be a part of a conversation, which we've got scheduled now for next week. But instead they went full board ahead and they've been trying to solve the problem. And so it speaks to their sincerity of wanting to be a part of this. And so my thought has always been, like Amazon didn't build its own transportation company right now to move its own products to all of these small towns. They partnered with transportation companies that were already going there so they could share in the cost to get their product there affordably. So just building off of that, post office does already have truck drivers. They're, this might expand their volume, and we might just be shifting the truck driver problem off to the post office by doing this. I'm not sure. But they also they might have room as well. And then you talked about the warehouse folks, troubles with the sorting and picking, reaching out to the food bank. The food bank does the sorting as well. And they have been interested in being partners in moving food to rural places. And they're also having problems finding warehouse sorters and pickers, but maybe if we consolidated, we'd need less people overall. I'm not really sure, but I think that there could be some efficiencies moving forward. Like even if you get a supplier this year, the problem's going to keep popping up. It's not like this is going to go away for us at any time soon. So if we could free ourselves from having to depend on a supplier transporting the food or whatever other product it is to our rural places, and knowing that the post office could do that on our behalf, we'd have more options of who could supply our food to us. And they are using igloo containers already for perishable foods. That was a surprise to me that was so widely used. And I also think that we should be thinking about moving conventional foods with local foods to share in that cost as well. But that's all just at the talking point right now, but there's a lot of work going on the post office's behalf to try to serve rural better.
Great, thank you for that. How about, since we've continued on along this conversation, do others have just a flash of an idea that popped in your head, or a question or a comment that came to you while you've been learning and listening?
What happened to all the truck drivers? Where are they?
A lot of them retired. I know the industry identified, so you can get your CDL at 21. So as we know, one way to attack an issue is policy and changing policy. So if you have someone who leaves the K-12 at 18 and doesn't want to pursue a 2-year or a 4-year school, you can't capture them as a as a CDL driver until 21. Well, they've already made a decision about a career by that time. So I know the industry was trying to work on perhaps lowering that age, or you could become like a trainee or something like that. That retiring really affected the bus driver also, because a lot of retirees, my uncle was one, he sold his car dealership and went and drove bus. Bus in the morning and bus at night. There's not a lot of people who can have that split schedule. So it's just that. And yeah, so a lot of the retirees, and then of course the pandemic, it hit that age group. So they really fell out from wanting to drive in particular school buses. And that was part of the pressure on that industry.
This is Mary, and I come to it from the farmer's perspective. With my thought is we have some farmers markets and we have producers that make, that grow some really good crops. Now, most of that's August and October, and so it's not long-term, but what can we do to help get their food from their place to the schools?
I'm pausing because Jane and I could fill your afternoon on this topic with what we've done with some work. I would say, you know, right now, if you are a grower and you feel you can help supplement your local school district, I would call your food service director at your local school district and just say, how can I help you? Here's what I have. How can I help you? Of course, they all have different levels of experience in dealing with local foods and accepting them into their kitchen and their comfort level. But we found just that personal reach out of how can we help you? Here's what I have. Does that work for you in any way?
And in my observation is most of the people that are at farmers markets aren't going to do that, at least, and I have a very limited view, but yeah, it makes them nervous to think about selling to anything but their customers there. But I noticed that some things go home wasted. So I think that's definitely an avenue we could pursue. And since I have the floor just another minute, Stephanie and I were talking, since we're facing this now, there are some crops that we could encourage producers to do now. The radishes, the carrots, even some greens, if there are high tunnels and small greenhouses. And we do have one producer in, at least that I'm aware of, that does hydroponic lettuce. How do we get the word out to them to even say, hey, reach out to your local school district, because they might be in a possible avenue for marketing your vegetables or your fruit.
Mm-hmm.
If I
might,
might,
know Jody has tried to help get that word out along with Stephanie. Jody, we haven't heard from you. Just share that you sent a message out to some folks in your networks.
Yeah, so Mary and I are kind of in the same neck of the woods. And so we're referencing the same people. And so I actually just sent another email to another person who could supply. I know that he has reached out to the school, not this year, but in prior years, and faced great resistance. So I'm encouraging to make that contact again. Maybe they don't need you today, but maybe in a month they will be desperate for your food. And so I think we just need to keep beating that drum.
Yeah, we do. And those of us that have that comfort, like I go to markets and I go to my market and then I send a note to the school and say, hey, the carrots look really good this week. Do you need carrots? Now I've just started that recently and that's being very successful. And lots of times I just buy that at the market, but I make sure that they know where it's going and I make sure the school knows where it's coming from. And it's starting to create a little comfort, but I'm just one farmer's market, but I would like to be, or I could be part of a bigger effort if I knew what this group or what the state needed.
This is Stephanie. How can as Mary said, some of those farmers might be hesitant to reach out themselves to the school districts. How can those of us in coordinating roles create those connections, bridge that gap? And is there a centralized contact list for schools? How do we find the contact information for those school food service programs?
The Department of Instruction may have a list. I might have a link. Let me look and then I could share it in the chat.
Okay.
And I joined late. I'm sorry. I just think for many schools, and this is a generalization, and I don't mean to put everyone in a box, but there's been this, and perhaps this has been mentioned, but I guess the general sentiment that they can't buy from a local producer. And I know that's probably been said, but I think we just need to continue to say, it's okay.
And you published some guidance, didn't you, Jody? Just recently.
Right. Yeah. Travis and I worked on a publication. I could put a link in that chat. If it's helpful, use it. If you want copies, we can make sure someone gets paper copies too. Thank you, Stephanie.
And I know in Bismarck, Claire Lowe-Suter, who is our local foods coordinator, she is hosting a town hall chat kind of a thing for local producers to meet with the food service director, Michelle Wagner, hopefully to increase the partnerships and participation for that sort of thing. And it's coming up, I think it's October 5th, I think, so it'll be here soon. But that's that's just Bismarck.
Yeah, you probably have some allies in the larger districts, like Dana Reef at West Fargo worked for us with that Lakes Country, the Service Co-op in Minnesota, and was part of that food hub. So they do a lot with local foods. Cindy Hoganson at Fargo came from Concordia, where they had a pretty extensive local foods program that she's brought over into Fargo. So some of what they call the Big 8 districts in North Dakota, you'd have some advocates there. I can't remember what Michelle did. She came from Dilworth, Lynn, and Felton. I can't remember if she was big into local foods at that time, but Michelle's innovative, so she'll for sure listen. I think what we encourage with the local growers is to reach out to their individual districts and kind of try to work together on planning so that a grower can plan when the harvest might be to line up when the school may need it, and that the grower then isn't spending money on something that they're hoping a school might take, but that the school can then plan for it, and they can plan for it within their menus. Of course, you're maybe looking at the next school year for that type of planning, but making connections now certainly help, and maybe just letting your growers know that the food service directors are going to have a lot of questions about the safety around the food. It's just drilled into their heads so much that they're going to have a lot. So don't be surprised by the questions you might get from your food service director. But yes, to Jody's point, they can use local foods. It's just getting the comfort level, and do they have the staff? Can they prep? Do they have the storage space? That's why we encourage that local reach out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Melissa. If there's the top 5 things that a food service director is going to want to know about your farm or your product, like if there's ideas on, I'm sure water and waste and, those sorts of things are going to be big ones. But if there's other ones that would be helpful to let those local producers know, this is what you can expect them to ask or to want to know, that might be helpful.
There are resources out there. Stephanie, you help people write food safety plans for their farm, right? Through farms, or do you teach that with the kids, with your participants?
That is part of Farm Beginnings, but farm staff don't teach that directly. We bring in somebody who's been trained, and that used to be Holly and Jamie Good. And so last year we brought in Julie Garden-Robinson to talk about food safety. Keith Knudsen has done some farm food safety trainings in the past. Maybe that's another area where we might need some more trainers.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association might be a good place to reach out and say, would you sponsor that along with farms? I don't want to just say farms is an awesome thing, but I don't want to just dump on it. But yeah, that is definitely a niche that we need to fill.
I can give kind of a little update on that. So Jamie is no longer going to do any of the training, and then I plan on getting my certification. That will take a while. And then there will also be hopefully another person for representation on this side of the state, because Julie Garden-Robinson does an excellent job for Fargo, but the state would kind of like to see another person step up and just be a backup trainer for this side of the state aside from just me. So if anybody has any recommendations, we would love to hear about that. But the other thing, we are planning on, at least this winter, alongside our local foods conference, we're hoping to devote one day where we do the food safety moderation training. So that's coming up here, and that might be something to kind of focus on. I don't mean to derail from the bigger picture that we're talking about, but just so you guys are aware that that is something that will more than likely be happening in the future. Yeah, so
Christine, maybe we can catch up afterwards. I'd like to connect you to the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, because I think, well, Holly was the one that represented that group, as well as Dakota College. But I think they would be people that could maybe consider volunteering to be trainers.
That would be awesome, Mary. We'd really, really appreciate that. Something else, I kind of had a thought outside of this, while everybody was discussing farm to school stuff, is there maybe some kind of coordination we could develop where there's succinct social media campaigning for local producers and stuff like that? Would anybody be interested in that? If I designed some stuff maybe and sent it to you guys, would you share it on your social medias and your websites and things like that?
Yes.
Yes.
Love that idea. Thanks.
I see on this distinctive row of faces joined together through our call a bunch of networks that can help get these messages out. So if you develop them, I know there are people who will share them, and definitely through this North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance network, we'll get it out to the sub networks. And yes, I think we can reach a lot of groups. So thank you.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of succinct marketing, and I definitely am more than happy to do some graphics and just do some more public information type stuff related to farm to school. I'm gonna, I think after the meeting, connect with Claire too, and just visit with her about that thing you were talking about, Jan, that she's gonna put together. Because if that's something that maybe we can, I don't know, work on getting somebody to do some video work or piece something together in that department, that would be a really great tool for producers to just kind of sum up and understand how to go through the process. But anyway, all right. I can definitely put some stuff together for you in that department about farm to school stuff. That would be great.
I also want to add, and this is more for the long term, the bigger picture of creating a coordinated statewide farm to school effort so that, in the future, if this were to happen, we would be positioned to respond immediately. And I lost the link, but there is a training coming up from was it the National Farm to School? No, it was
one part of USDA for sure.
Yeah. So
that's going to be
Farm to School program. and it's a train the trainer for the Mountain Plains region. So anyone that is interested in going through this, I think it's a 5-day online training to become a trainer of local producers to help them connect with schools. And it's and they also have a lot of training materials already created for the producer side. And I think it's connected with the National Farm to School Network.
It's through Food and Nutrition Service in USDA. So USDA FNS, and it's a producer training. And I'm slated to take the training. And I think that Claire is also going to be taking the training. And I've been trying to recruit others in Extension to participate. But yes, I think increasing those numbers of folks across the state would be great.
I've signed up as well. And Felicity and I discussed Felicity signing up.
I'm also signed up. So peer pressure people into signing up.
All right, these are really good things that are coming out of this already, is that we're hearing that we can work on a marketing plan to help get the word out, that people are signed up for training and training the trainers, that we have things going on in places in the state that are kind of regional. We can look to broaden those out. We can remain in touch through North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance. And I also offer up 1 week from today, the Creating a Hunger-Free North Dakota Coalition has a meeting that's regularly scheduled. And I can continue to share and garner ideas and make connections. I will devote a portion of the agenda for that meeting to this topic. I'm just looking at the time and wanting to be respectful of all your time in our scheduled plan for 1 hour meeting. Let's see, Felicity or Stephanie, do you have any other things we want to make sure to cover in this segment of the meeting?
I wanted to just touch on quickly, like right now, what is, I think, the most important thing we can do going forward? Like, would it, on the side of like my point of view, someone who coordinates local foods, I'm not a producer. I work with some producers. I also work with all of you guys. Do you think that would be like some sort of like guidance, like what Jody made, getting that out there? Or do you think it would be making those connections? Like, and I guess I'm just opening this question up to everyone, but like if there's one thing that we can take forward right now after this meeting.
I heard a couple things that I would love to have somebody like you follow up on. And one was the thing in Texas with kind of the checklist or the app. And I should have written it down. I've already forgotten the name of that, Melissa and Jane, but that's a really good idea. Love to have somebody follow up on that. And with Christine doing some PR and so forth, that's awesome. We can all get this out. But I also think if you could get the list of the school food directors, that would help. Then as we were in contact with producers or farmers markets, then we can help that make that connection. I'll say, here's the list, just call this person. It might be worth your time. And the last thing I'll say, because I feel like I've dominated some things, but Melissa and Jane, I also heard you say something about the trucking and the travel. And last I knew, the Great Plains Food Bank had volunteered and is even doing some things that would help local producers move food. Now that's been a couple of years ago, but when we sat around and talked about local foods and how to feed people, they brought that to the table. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If we need to make some connections between these small towns and these groceries, Great Plains Food Bank might be a resource for you.
Yes, and Laurie has helped make that connection.
Paul Overby here. So I mentioned in my intro, we were getting set to meet with the people in northeastern North Dakota. And so this is actually one of the topics in our feasibility study. We identified some of the issues that have been brought out here, disconnect between local food people and food service people. And I'm just wondering who in this group right now has a one-page handout that says to school people, here's what you can buy from local foods, and who has a one-page handout that says to local producers, here's how you can supply schools.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Paul. It's something that we were working on in some of the tribal communities on a project, is creating a greater input and growing capacity within those tribal communities. And so then, you know, starting out small, whether it's a community garden, individual garden, or like a hydroponics unit or something, and then giving them some tools and resources on, you know, once you get past the stage of sampling this stuff, what then can you do with your produce? So to answer your question quickly, no, that's not what we have right now, but maybe soon.
I didn't want to have to create this when I go out in 2 weeks. I want somebody to just hand me a publication so I can take it with. And I'm presuming I'm going to meet, I'm hoping to meet with, like, say, a Lions Club or a Chamber of Commerce meeting. And some of those types of people are going to be school board members. And so some of what we need to get at, I know just from our feasibility study, is the school board members supporting, maybe even pushing a little bit on their food service providers to do this, so that there's community support behind it, and not just the people in food service kind of sticking their necks out and trying this. And maybe I need to wait for a bit between Christine and Felicity and Jan and whoever, and Melissa and whoever all working on this. But to me, what we really just need as a starting point, just a simple one-page handout with 5 or 6 points for both people. I know that local food producers, most of them aren't geared up to supply food service of any institution at the level that they need in terms of consistency of supply, the ability to plan ahead and work with that food service. Most of them aren't at that point. And that's actually part of our focus in our feasibility study, is trying to help producers get to that point where they're more than just a farm market supplier, but they take it to the next level of being an actual institutional supplier. And it's two different mindsets there in approach. But my goal in meeting with communities is to plant seeds, so to speak, and start the conversation. And then we'll go back to USDA rural development for more grant funding to take it to the next level.
Paul, would it be helpful just to have this document? Do you want copies of this? It's not bullet points, but I mean, it's pretty concise.
Is that the one that you just posted links to?
It is, but I do have a few in my office. If you want me to put some in the mail, I sure can.
No, that's fine. Let me take a look at it, and I'll follow up. I've got lots of people to follow up with here, so expect some email in the next 48 hours.
The other thing, I'm sorry, but I was just gonna say, Paul, sorry, Felicity. The other thing I was gonna say, Paul, is I'm more than happy to do just kind of like an intro to like farm to school, because I think a lot of producers that could participate are pretty unsure of what the program is. I know I didn't know what it was until I started working for this position, and I had been in the farmers market scene for quite a while. So I think it would be good to just have some plain Jane intro, if you want to call it that, educational documents and pamphlets that we can give out, aside from like the graphics and all that other stuff that we can use to promote for the messaging. But I'll put kind of like a little, I was going to say media toolkit together, if you will, that will just have some samples of all sorts of different stuff. And I will visit, since I kind of need approval for my budget, but maybe it's a possibility that I could mail you some of these organizations like farms directly some printed materials for you guys to hand out when you're at your markets and stuff like that. And Jan, when you go and you're working with your reservation communities and stuff, that would be good. So Excellent idea, Paul.
Thank you, Christine.
Is there interest in if we put together another meeting in the next 3 weeks or so that was more of a working group meeting to pull together some of these messaging points and coordinated plan for how we can address this problem? Maybe Felicity and I could send a doodle poll out.
I'd like to see this group come together again. I have a lot of questions, but I know we're running out of time, so I'm keeping my big mouth shut.
Well, maybe we can squeeze in a special meeting about farm to school in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw in that in this week when we're approaching the United Nations gatherings on sustainable food systems and development, and in a period where we've just gone through a drought, extreme heat in our own state and throughout the world, that this is a time when we need to develop resilience and we need to have more than one source of food to meet our food needs. We've got to make more baskets instead of putting all our eggs in one. So I just like to say that as Laurie began, that this opportunity in a kind of dark time, I believe can and will grow into something more and more opportunities for our local growers and our local eaters.
For the sake of time, I am going to put a link to our member updates in the chat. And I encourage you guys to read through those on your own. And if you have anything in the local food atmosphere come up, feel free to make a post and share that with us. And I wanted to thank everyone for being here today. I think that we made a lot of headway, and I agree with Stephanie that I think you'll be getting a doodle poll from me for some additional meeting to kind of get into the weeds with all of this. So unless there is any other last questions, I will thank you guys all and see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.